I'm talking about immortality today because one of the congregants asked me to. So I thought, why not? I think it's a very interesting topic, and a lot of people have different things to say about it. So I think to understand it, you have to understand unity. We can have a go. I talked about unity, being one with Spirit and coming into unity. We drew little mandalas, they were circles, and that's to give you subconsciously an idea that it's never ending. There's a circle, and it's all God. It's all good. So I'll just say about immortality, in addition to having a consciousness of unity, I have a consciousness of never ending. The soul is ever uncovering its divinity. That's your true self. It never begins and it never ends. We don't. So, last week, Reverend Kate spoke about science mind treatments and positive prayer, and that was to help us understand there's only the one power, and we align ourselves with it. During treatment is a realization of this omnipresence, that God is everywhere. Also, when we do a treatment, we come into this consciousness, which some call Christ consciousness, others call cosmic consciousness. But first, before I talk to you about Plato and Paramahansa Yogananda and Joel Goldsmith and Rumi, there was a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist had a patient, and she asked the patient, so how long have you believed in reincarnation? And the patient said, well, ever since I was a puppy. And another patient said, well, I don't believe in reincarnation, and I didn't believe it last time either. One last one. Did you hear about the new Italian restaurant that just opened in the afterlife? It's called Pasta Way.
Pasta Way.
Okay. All right. But in religious science, our founder, I think he put together a declaration of principle, and he said, I believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. And Plato, if you may remember the Greeks, Plato based everything on logic, and he came up with the fact that the soul is primary, the body is dispensable. The soul, he said, since it's immortal, has seen all things in other worlds. It has learned everything. Seeking and learning are in fact nothing but recollection. So he deduced from logic that you already have all the answers within. It's all within you. All you have to do is uncover it. And Ernest Holmes says, we're as immortal now as we could ever be. I know that all came from the one, all will return to the one. So we have to start by practicing this state of consciousness and open ourselves up to immortality, because it's already there. We have to start thinking about our oneness with the universe, the stars, the grains of sand on the beach, nature, the people of the world. I think it was Emerson who said, if you want to know God, know nature. A Native American belief states, we believe that the spirit pervades all creation and that every creature possesses a soul in some degree, though not necessarily soul conscious of itself. He said, they say the tree, the waterfall, the grizzly bear, the salmon, each is an embodied force and is such an object of reverence. So when I was in college at UCLA, I read this book called Cosmic Consciousness. It's written by a fellow named Richard Maurice Buck. He was a psychiatrist from Canada and an MD. He was a friend of Walt Whitman's. So he was born in the early 1800s. He said that cosmic consciousness is the next evolutionary stage of an awakening human being, a new faculty of being human. Some of us call it Christ consciousness. He said, in an instant, Walt Whitman's transcendent greatness was revealed. He experienced something he could never forget, which Buck defines as awareness of the life and the order of the universe. And several people have had these cosmic consciousness experiences, I included, when I was 19 years old. I was not doing drugs. I was doing transcendental meditation and had been doing for about 6 months. And all of a sudden I had this experience of this blinding white light and being enveloped in love. It was light and love, and I realized at that moment I was safe and I was loved, and that's what the divine really is. It is this light and love. And my fear of death went away. I no longer ever feared losing this physical body. It was so amazing. And other people have the same similar experience, especially the mystics. And I felt this incredible bliss and joy like I have never felt before. And I didn't work at it. I had just let go. It's not something you work toward. I think you have to go within and just allow. So Paramahansa Yogananda, most of you know who he is, said the soul is immortal and the thoughts of immortality can help us become more aware of our eternal natures. Whatever our role in changeable mortal life, never forget that you're immortal. You're endowed with eternal joy. And he has an affirmation which he says, say to yourself, I'm changeless, I'm infinite, I'm not a little mortal being, I am deathless and changeless infinity. You know, Yogananda also believed that the body's only a garment. He said the death of the body is not the end, but a temporary emancipation. He told people to live in timelessness and say, I'm a child of eternity. And he once told this story of a drunken prince. He said the drunken prince went into the slums and forgetting entirely his true identity, he began lamenting, oh, how poor I am, how poor I am. And his friends laughed at him and they said, wake up and remember, you're a prince, you're a prince. We've been likewise in a state of hallucination, thinking we're helpless mortals, struggling and miserable. No, save yourself. No birth, no death have I, I'm one. I am the infinite happiness. There's also another great teacher, mystic, Yeshua ben Joseph, also known as Jesus the Christ. He spoke of unity. He said, I am the Father of one. And there's a place in the New Testament where it says, men started to stone him and they said, you're blaspheming. And he said, well, he said to them, hasn't it been written in your law, meaning the Jewish law at the time, that, quote, I said you are gods? And this comes from Psalms 82. So at the time, people understood, yes, we are God. We are gods. We are one with the Creator. In Taoism, the Tao Te Ching says the techniques for achieving immortality are revealed to those who have dissolved all ties to duality, which is good and bad, conflict, and dogma. So believe in unity, practice conflict resolution, and keep an open mind. So it's a matter where do you put your consciousness? I like this Rumi. He's from Sufism. Rumi said, death has nothing to do with going away. The sun sets, the moon sets, but they're not gone. Die happily and look forward to taking up a new and better form, like the sun. Only when you set in the west can you rise in the east. Some of you may know or heard Michael Beckwith, and he has a book on visioning. His book has 4 levels of consciousness. You may remember the first one is to me, by me, through me, and as me. The to me is victim consciousness. You know, life happens to me. Woe is me, my mother, my father, my job. It all happened to me. I have no control. The second level of consciousness is responsibility consciousness, which is by me. I make it happen. I co-create. I know my words create form. And I am careful what I say, and I ask for what I want. So that stage is by me. Through me is the surrender consciousness. I let go. I let God. I allow the highest and best to flow through me. And the fourth step, the fourth level he talks about is called oneness. That's the unity consciousness. It says, I'm one with spirit. So you can practice immortality. You can practice by practicing, watching what you're saying. You know, do you ever judge somebody? Boy, I didn't like their costume. No. You ever criticize? You condemn somebody? You complain? You know, one thing you can do is when you start to hear that happen, physically turn away. Turn your body, because it'll cause your thinking to change. You turn away from it. Instead of condemning this person or looking at them and saying they're too fat, they're too skinny, whatever, turn away and just say, okay, what would somebody with a cosmic consciousness say? What would a Jesus say? What would a Yogananda say? What would Buddha say? What would Michael Beckwith say? And realize the only way to respond is with love. Love, love, love. Love is immortal. I don't know if some of you know Joel Goldsmith and his writings. I love this. He says, you know, immortality is like this. And there's a little parenthesis right here, which is your birth and your death. And then you were before and you will be after, this little parentheses. He says in his book, The Practice of Spiritual Healing, very often when we think of mortality, we think of the life beyond the grave, but we don't stop to realize that if there was any truth to immortality, we must have been life before birth. We can't be immortal if we have a life that ever began. Immortality is from everlasting to everlasting. God can no more begin than it can end. God and I are one. The I of me in that oneness has never begun and never will end. He goes on to say, I was here before I was conceived in my mother's womb, and I'll be here if I should ever go through the experience of passing on. One of these days, I shall evolve out of this sensible body into whatever the true identity or form of my body may be, because there is an I, and I am that. Just as Moses and Jesus had said, I am that I am. Roger Teal, he's a New Thought writer who wrote, This Life is Joy. He said, you're a being of light, born from, living within, and giving expression to universal love. And Matthew Fox, I don't know if Matthew Fox is still alive. He's an amazing man. He's an American priest and teacher. He said the human soul not only is localized within human beings, but also interconnected with the entire universe. Our soul is free of time and space, eternal, infinite, all-powerful, divine by nature. No matter how sick and injured our bodies are, our souls are always whole and holy, Holy. So, death. I wanted to speak a little bit about death from the standpoint of Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes, who wrote the Science of Man textbook, he said, spirits birthless and deathless. Life cannot know death. The experience of dying is but laying off of an old garment. There's a material body and a spiritual body, and the spiritual body is the resurrection body. He said, I can't believe that nature's limited one sphere of action. The average person desires an eternal progress, an everlasting expansion, a complete reconciliation between this life and everlasting existence. We view eternity from the higher standpoint as continuity of time forever and ever expanding. And he says, there'll be time enough in eternity to prove everything. And he said, well, where shall we go when we die? If today's the logical continuance of yesterday, then all the tomorrows which stretch down the vista of eternity will be a continuity of experiences and remembrance. We shall keep on keeping on. We shall continue in our own individual stream of consciousness, forever and ever expanding. He says, when we came to this life, we were met by loving people. We had family around us to welcome us in this birth. And when we go on, he said, there'll be loving hands to greet us there. Loved ones that have gone before us. And they'll help us until we can become accustomed to our new surroundings. Nature will not let us stay in any one place too long. She'll let us stay just long enough to gather the experience necessary for the unfolding and advancement of the soul. He says, when the change comes, we should welcome it with a smile and a song in our heart. So the Voice Celestial, this is his last book, The Voice Celestial, and it was written by Ernest Holmes and Fenwick Holmes. It's a very complex book. It's written in iambic pentameter. So if you like poetry, it's amazing. Ernest was kind of afraid that once you read The Voice Celestial, you'd never go back to the Science of Mind textbook, because this is a leap. It's a leap in consciousness. So he says in The Voice Celestial, he says, the greatest gift ever presented to mankind by seer, scientist, or savior was made by Jesus, the demonstration and proof of a soul, that there's only one way to prove it, to die and reappear as an actual experience of death and survival. Jesus demonstrated soul survival. The personality returned in soul form and body sufficiently dense to be seen, but not always easily recognized by his disciples. His disciples did not recognize the body that he came back in. But he says, Ernest says, final significance lies not in the appearances of soul forms, but in the assurance of continuity of individual existence. Ernest also talks about a container of continuity, that the soul is this container that continues for us. And he says, dimensions fail to measure out the bliss of cosmic consciousness, the joy of the pursuit, the romance of union with the whole. Love is the mystic cord that binds the soul. The measure of all knowing lies within. Now, reincarnation. There are many beliefs around reincarnation. I'll just say that Ernest Holmes did not believe in a reincarnation as most believe it. He felt that the soul was always expanding, and that expansion was like a spiral upwards. So you don't go back. You don't go back to some place you've already been. Now, Ralph Waldo Emerson believed in it because he felt that it was a way for the soul to learn. Of course, Yogananda, being Hindu, believed in reincarnation. And John the Baptist, you may recall from the New Testament, John the Baptist is talking to Jesus and he says, are you, I forget which prophet, are you the prophet returned? And Jesus said, no, he wasn't reincarnated. So many people have beliefs around this, and you have your own belief around this for you to explore. I just want to talk about science for a minute because science supports immortality. And I'll tell you why. Well, we know quantum theory. I won't go into quantum theory, I've talked about it before, but string theory. String theory is part of a theory about quantum gravity. String theory right now heavily favors 11 dimensions up to 26 dimensions. Who knows if we live in them all. But right now we live in 3 dimensions plus a fourth, which is time. There's much more to explore out there. There's much more than we see that we can ever experience. And it is said that string theory realistically predicts a multiverse of 10 to the 500th power. Now, calculus, they don't like to use the infinity symbol, so they say 10 to the 500th power. That means forever. Larger than you can conceive. And that's what it means to have all these different universes. I don't know, some of you saw Spider-Man, No Way Home with Doctor Strange, and all these different universes. Well, science is saying that exists for us to play in. I like this one by, also the first law of thermodynamics. I know most of you didn't take physics, but this law says energy can be converted from one form to another, but it can't be created nor destroyed under any circumstance. So the energy is already there, the matter is already there. And yes, Einstein said E equals mc squared, so it can go back and forth. But it's never destroyed. It's never started, it's never stopped. It is. It has always been. This is the law of conservation of mass. And science is also saying our universe is expanding much faster than they originally thought. Well, the soul has the ability to expand with it. And I just wanted to say that there's so much out there. There's so much out there for us. This is not, I don't believe this is my only life, because I will go on to the next dimension or one of the other universes and have a good time. There was a great 17th century philosopher, his name was Spinoza. He said the mind of God is the mentality that is scattered over space and time, the diffuse consciousness that animates the world. Also, Hafiz, who was a Sufi mystic, he said, in the moment of transition, I start skipping like a child. I turn into a leaf that is carried so high that I kiss the sun's mouth and dissolve. I begin to eternally laugh and love and dance, and I run to kiss the divine, and I dissolve into the truth that I am. You know, what fun. I feel like when the transition occurs, I'm going to be out there beyond Jupiter playing with the stars and the other galaxies. I'm going to be filled with this bliss of light and love and a greater version of myself and all of you. So in closing, you could try this affirmation this week. You could say to yourself, I am deathless, I am the infinite, I am immortal. You want to say that? I am deathless, I